Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राज का जय स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी जगतगुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राज का जय स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 15, text number 26. Tadvishvagurvadhikrutam bhuvanaika vandyam divyam vichitra vibudhara vimana shochi विमान आपुः परामुदमपूर्वमुपेत्य योग माया बलेन मुनयस्तदयो विकुण्ठम् तद्विश्वगुर्वधिकृतं भुवनैकवन्द्यम् दिव्यं विचित्रविबुधाग्र्य विमानशोचिः आपुः परामुदमपूर्वमुपेत्य योग माया बलेन मुनयस्तदयो विकुण्ठम् तद्विश्वगुर्वधिकृतं भुवनैकवन्द्यम् दिव्यं विचित्रविबुधाग्र्य विमानशोचिः आपुः परामुदमपूर्वमुपेत्य योग माया बलेन मुनयस्तदथो विकुण्ठम् आपुः परामुदमपूर्वमुपेत्य योग माया बलेन मुनयस्तदथो विकुण्ठम् विश्वगुर्वधिकृतं भुवनैकवन्द्यम् दिव्यं विचित्रं माता विश्वगुर्वधिकृतं भुवनैकवन्द्यम् दिव्यं विचित्रविबुधाग्र्य विमानशोचिः आपुः परामुदमपूर्वमुपेत्य योग माया बलेन मुनयस्तदथो विकुण्ठम्। माता जी Vishvapurvadhikrutam bhuvanekavandam Divyam Chaitravara Uparam Vridam Etya Yoga Maya Balena Munayasthadatho Vikuntham Tat then Vishwaguru, by the teacher of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Adhikratam, predominated, Bhuvana, of the planets, Eka, alone, Vandyam, worthy to be worshipped, Divyam, spiritual, Vichitra, highly decorated, Vibhuda Agya, of the devotees who are the best of the learned, Vimana, of the airplanes, Shochihi, illuminated, Apuhu, attained, Param, the highest, Mudam, happiness, Apurvam, unprecedented, Upetya, having attained, Yoga Maya, by spiritual potency, Balena, by the influence, Munayaha, the sages, Tad, Vaikuntha, Atho, that, Vikuntham, Vishnu. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Thus the great sages Sanak, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar, upon reaching the above mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes, piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha, and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second. He is above everyone. No one is equal to Him, nor is anyone greater than Him. Therefore, He is described here as Vishwaguru. He is the prime living entity of the entire material and spiritual creation, and is Bhuvanaika Vandyam, the only worshipable personality in the three worlds. The airplanes in the spiritual sky are self-illuminated and are piloted by great devotees of the Lord. In other words, in the Vaikuntha planets, there is no scarcity of the things which are available in the material world. They are available, but they are more valuable because they are spiritual and therefore eternal and blissful. The sages felt an unprecedented happiness because Vaikuntha was not predominated by an ordinary man. The Vaikuntha planets are predominated by expansions of Krishna, who are differently named as Madhusudan, Madhava, Narayan, Pradyumna, etc. These transcendental planets are worshipable because the personality of Godhead personally rules them. It is said here that the sages reached the transcendental spiritual sky by dint of their mystic power. That is the perfection of the yoga system. The breathing exercises and disciplines to keep health in proper order are not the ultimate goals of yoga perfection. The yoga system is, as generally understood, is Ashtanga Yoga or Siddhi, eightfold perfection in yoga. By dint of perfection in yoga, one can become lighter than the lightest and heavier than the heaviest. One can go wherever he likes and can achieve opulences as he likes. There are 8 such perfections. The rishis, the 4 Kumaras, reached Vaikuntha by becoming lighter than the lightest and thus passing over the space of the material world. Modern mechanical space vehicles are unsuccessful because they cannot go to the highest region of this material creation. And they certainly cannot enter the spiritual sky. But by perfection of the yoga system, one not only can travel through material space, but can surpass material space and enter the spiritual sky. We learn this fact also from an incident concerning Durvas Muni and Ambrish Maharaj. It is understood that in 1 year, Durvas Muni traveled everywhere and went into the spiritual sky to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. By present standards, scientists calculate that if one could travel at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of this material world. But the yoga system can carry one without limitation or difficulty. The word Yogamaya is used in this verse. Yogamaya balena vikuntham. The transcendental happiness exhibited in the spiritual world and all other spiritual manifestations that are made possible by the influence of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Bowing down to all the devotees here, especially Savas Prabhu and Archita Prabhu and Bhragupati Prabhu and all the senior Prabhupada disciples, Amal Bhakta Swami Maharaj and all the Matajis, everybody who is present. We begin Canto 3, 15 and 26th verse. This is very important verse basically because it describes how the Vaikuntha planets are by nature full of Ananda. Now, Ananda means the natural happiness. There is difference between Sukha, the happiness that is generated when the sense object comes in contact with the sense. Then there is Sukha, which is basically or most of the times used for material happiness. And there is Ananda, that is very natural happiness that comes from within. Just what was experienced by the 4 sons of Brahma. When Chatush Kumaras went in the Vaikuntha planets, the way they went was by the yoga system. They just became lighter than the lightest. And they could travel so fast, and they became so light that they transcended all the material elements. If you become lighter than air, you start floating in the air. And if you become lighter than even the space or vacuum, you can even surpass vacuum. And like that, they transcended all the material elements, and then they just felt like, oh, where have we arrived? Such a beautiful place. By nature, as soon as they entered in the atmosphere of Vaikuntha, they became automatically jubilant, ecstatic, and they were very much confused and bewildered. How are we feeling so much of ecstasy without doing anything? It's just in the air, just the atmosphere of the spiritual world is so full of bliss. We say the Sat Chit Ananda. Spiritual world is made up of Sat, Chit and Ananda. In the spiritual world, there are three very beautiful and most important aspects. That the atmosphere is naturally making you full of bliss. Just like whenever we touch air in Vaikuntha, you just feel extreme happiness just by being in the, whenever the skin comes in the contact with the atmosphere. So this is described as Vishuddha Sattva. The atmosphere is full of Vishuddha Sattva. It's made of that Vishuddha Sattva elements. And second thing, the best about Vaikuntha is you are a pure devotee. That's why you are there. Otherwise, you won't be there. So you are completely pure. You do not carry any contaminations within the heart which block the spiritual happiness. All the impurities within our heart, they block us from getting the spiritual happiness, which are not present in the Vaikuntha planets. And the third best thing about Vaikuntha is you are surrounded by pure devotees. There is not a single person, even the trees, even the grass and the twigs, even the birds, and even the small flies, everything in Vaikuntha, they are completely in transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're constantly deriving that happiness. And you are surrounded by pure devotees, and that's why they say that not a leaf can fall down from Vaikuntha. Because there is no possibility. First of all, the entire atmosphere is made up of Vishuddha Sattva. Then you yourself are a pure devotee and you are surrounded by the pure devotees. On the contrary, in the material world, what happens is the atmosphere itself is full of sin. As soon as somebody enters the material realm, the moment you enter, you start feeling impulse to enjoy through material senses. There is a natural tendency to enjoy sinful activities. And it is because this entire material world, all the things, they're contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance because of Rajogun and Tamas. So as soon as we enter, there is contamination. Just like the one water drop that is in the clouds, it's pure. But as soon as it comes and hits the ground, it becomes contaminated. The second problem with the material atmosphere environment is that you yourself have so many contaminations. We have so many anarthas. We have lust, anger, pride, illusion, and we have so much envy for the others. So that also completely blocks our accessing the spiritual realm, spiritual happiness. And third and the most important problem of the material environment is that we are surrounded by people who are having the same contamination. So everybody is diseased. So when you go to a hospital, the atmosphere is so contaminated that you just feel like, when will I be out of this place? Because everybody is suffering. So that's how the material world is created, where everyone suffers. This is described by Prabodhanand Saraswati Thakur. He says, Sansara dukkha jaladhau patitasya Kama krodhadi nakra makaraihi kavali kritasya Durvasana nigaditasya nirashrayasya Chaitanya chandra mama dehi padavalambam. He says that this material world is like ocean of suffering. Now in the ocean, the water is the most important ingredient. If someone throws you in an ocean, but if it is ocean of bliss, you will be floating in that ocean of bliss. But in this material world, the ocean is not of bliss. The ocean is made of suffering. Sansara dukkha jaladho. The water of this ocean of material world is dukkha, is made of suffering. And patitasya, once having fallen down to this ocean of material existence, we are automatically captured by the crocodiles and sharks. We are surrounded. Already we are in the ocean of suffering. We are drowning, and on top of that, there is nakra, means the crocodiles. Crocodiles in the form of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, all these vices, lust, anger, greed, passion, envy. And the sharks in the form of different vices or the tendency to criticize. So these all sharks and crocodiles, they're already chasing us. And in such fashion, we have no other shelter except, Prabhupada Saraswati says, Chaitanya Chandra Mamadehi Padavalamma. If only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decides, then I may have the shelter. Then only I can be transferred from this ocean of suffering to the ocean of bliss of Vaikuntha. The word itself, Vaikuntha. Kuntha means suffering. And Vai means that is bereft of. So Vaikuntha. The place where there is no suffering. There is only Ananda. There is only happiness. That's why it is called Vaikuntha. And this material world is called Kuntha or Kunthalaya. Because everything about this material world somehow or other ultimately leads to suffering. So in this fashion, Prabhupada Saraswati says that we should take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, because they have the idea, they know the trick, how can we transcend this ocean of suffering and go to the ocean of happiness in Vaikuntha. So Prabhupada Saraswati, he says that if someone achieves association of a devotee who is completely surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then that guru, the guru will deliver the ordinary living entity who is suffering, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would deliver when he was present. So Prabhupada Saraswati says that even today, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is delivering all the fallen conditioned souls. How? Just through the medium of the great representative, like Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada came, we can see that it's as good as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself coming in our lives. When Prabhupada came to America, it is as good as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself came. So Prabhupada Saraswati says that when someone gets association of such a person, that guru can deliver anyone at any time, at his will, because he is mercy personified. He is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal mercy personified. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and here Krishna has been described as Tattva Vishwa Guru. Vishwa Guru means ultimately spiritual master. Who is ultimate spiritual master? Krishna. Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru, they say. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna was completely disheartened and he was, sweating, and, he threw away the bow, he said, I cannot fight. Krishna only took 45 minutes to convince him, get him ready. He is like, I'm ready to do whatever you want. Now, sthitosmi gata sandeha karishya vachanam tav. Whatever you want me to do, I have become your instrument now. You use me as you want. So Krishna is such a great spiritual master that in only 45 minutes, he did not say Arjuna that, oh, you're feeling very sweaty, maybe sit down, let me, bring you energy drink. You'll feel a little better, you'll feel nice. No, Guru means he will cut down your attachment to from the material world, from the body, and whatever is born out of body. So that's what Krishna does. In the beginning, Krishna is cutting all the attachments that Arjuna had with his body. This is my body, and these are my relatives. So Krishna is cutting down those attachments. So Guru means that he will cut down all the attachments. And Guru means he's heavy too. And Guru also means that he will not be mincing his words. He will straightforward tell what needs to be done. So one time, one wife went on a tour, and she was very attached to her cat. And the husband was made the caretaker of the cat while she was gone in a tour. But when the husband was taking care and also taking care of the chores in the house, the cat climbed on the roof and somehow fell and got injured badly and died. And then the husband was in stress. What should I do now? So he sent a text saying that I have such a bad news, the cat died today. And the wife couldn't take it. She immediately took the next flight, came home crying. And more than that, she was mad at the husband. She said, do you have little sense? Who gives the sad news just like that? First, you have to prepare my mind. You have to tell me that the cat climbed on the roof today. Then you take a few days. Then you should have told me that the cat is in the hospital and we're all trying our best. Then after a few days you say that we tried so best, very best, but somehow we couldn't save the cat. Now it's gone. That's how you slowly bring me to that news. You don't understand anything. Anyway, she went back to the tour. And while she was continuing the tour, after a few days, she received a text from the husband that today your father climbed up on the roof. And then she had 10 times more shock of her life. So what we see is in the material world, people don't want to listen to the truth. The truth of the matter is this, whoever has taken birth, they have to die. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Anybody who has taken birth, he has to die. And Srimad Bhagavatam very beautifully describes that if you have achieved the human form of life, then you must make the most of this opportunity while it lasts, because the human form of life is not eternal. There is a time that is clicking, and you have to make the most of this human form of life, because in this body you can achieve the highest perfection of life. And that's why even the demigods, even Lord Brahma, what to speak of Lord Brahma and all the demigods, even the plants and the creepers in Vaikuntha planets, they also aspire to be born as human beings on earth. They also think that, oh, Tulsi Devi has achieved such a highest position that she has achieved the lotus feet of the Lord. So we also want to follow her example, and we also want to go in the Bharatvarsha. We want to take birth as a human being on the earth, because Bharatvarsha basically means the whole earth in our scriptures. So we want to go there. We want to get to the bottom of the problem. The bottom of the material problem is we have to cut down the cycle of birth and death. That's the most important thing, because without cutting off this cycle of birth and death, then we are just superficially dealing with the problem. The problem of material world, can be solved when someone completely takes shelter of the spiritual master. When someone completely takes shelter of Krishna. Not hanky-panky business that, we put one leg on the material boat and we put another leg on the spiritual side, spiritual boat. And then you're trying to balance it out, but one day the boats go in different directions and you end up in the ocean again. So that's why Srila Prabhupada very intensely told all the disciples that just this one lifetime, give it to Krishna. Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj always reminds that Srila Prabhupada told him that we have given so many lifetimes to Maya. We have tried all our different ways of material enjoyment and we have failed. We have failed so many times, so badly, miserably. But only one lifetime, this lifetime, if we give to Krishna, if we give it in the service of Prabhupada, if we completely dedicate and focus and without diverting from this path of devotional service, if we go, then it's very easy to go back to Vaikuntha. It's very easy. So that's why Srila Prabhupada always stressed. And all the Prabhupada's disciples also, they are also glorious. Because Prabhupada, whatever Srila Prabhupada asked, to whatever extent it may be difficult, but the disciples surrendered. Because they said, if this is the desire of Srila Prabhupada, then we will do it. Whatever it takes, we must do this. Srila Prabhupada was traveling in India. He was in a train. The train was going to Bombay and Srila Prabhupada had scheduled so many of his programs in Bombay. And while the train was going, in the train Srila Prabhupada met a rich gentleman, Mr. D.D. Gupta. And Srila Prabhupada was cultivating that gentleman. And he was telling that, this is the most important opportunity. We should all give our best in this Sankirtana Andolan. And the person was getting convinced. And being on the train with Srila Prabhupada, you can imagine all the disciples they were surrounding Srila Prabhupada. They were looking at Srila Prabhupada. He was relaxed. While the train is going, Srila Prabhupada is preaching. Everybody thought that they are in a spiritual bubble. We are in the spiritual world, untouched by the material contamination, by the material energy. Now, all the disciples were just staring at Srila Prabhupada. He was preaching so nicely, and they were having the best times of their lives. And at that time, this D.D. Gupta says, Swamiji, I would like to help you start a temple in Delhi. The next station is Delhi, and I'm going to get down in Delhi. Srila Prabhupada immediately said that I would have liked to come, but I have to go to Bombay. So immediately Srila Prabhupada looked at Yamuna Mataji and Guru Das Prabhu. He said that you go with him, you get down the train right now. And they were like, what? We are having such a great time being with Srila Prabhupada in the train and such a long journey. We're just going to be enjoying with you, just listening from you and such a best time of our lives. But Prabhupada said, get down and start a temple. And they immediately surrendered. Yamuna Mataji, she immediately got down. She just fixed her clothes, covered her head, and she came on the window side where Srila Prabhupada was. And she bowed down to Srila Prabhupada, said, okay, Prabhupada, give us your blessings. We're ready. Whatever you say. And Srila Prabhupada later on wrote to Yamuna Mataji that you are practically the leader of the group. And I have such high expectations. And because you are so sincere devotees, that Krishna will definitely give you knowledge, strength, and intelligence. And you will do it. This is Srila Prabhupada's mood. And we have to follow the examples of Srila Prabhupada's disciples also, that they surrendered at the time of need. So if we follow these examples, we will also be very dear to Srila Prabhupada. And being dear to Srila Prabhupada is as good as being dear to Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki. Anybody's question? Rabindranath Prabhu.
So you mentioned Krishna took 45 minutes to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So why does it take us so many hours to recite the Bhagavad Gita?
Recite it. First of all, when we recite with our senses, and we are not very good at reciting. It's not our first language, so many times we take time. But when Krishna spoke, Krishna only spoke those verses that where it says Bhagwan Vacha and Arjuna's verses. So basically that's the Bhagavad Gita, that the dialogue that happened exactly on the Kurukshetra. So because it's their language, so they speak fast. If you go to India, they speak Hindi so fast, and then you think, oh, how do they do that? Or if you meet Krishna Gauranga Prabhu, he speaks Spanish so fast, like I didn't get anything, but he gets it, and if someone knows Spanish, they will get it. Deva Vrat Prabhu. Maharaj, your question, Maharaj?
Thanks for a wonderful class, Prabhu. I wanted to just ask one point. You made a point several times that one should give his life to Krishna and forget about all this sense pleasure and gratification and enjoyment, ego. Just give that up and just take to Krishna and completely surrender to Krishna. But we have to ask this question. That sounds good, and nobody would argue with that. But what about when a person is attached to certain sense gratification? When there's attachment, there's a feeling within to want to do that, to want to enjoy that, to want to stimulate that. So you can't just talk it away. What has to be done is you have to have something better in order to be able to get rid of this sense pleasure. A spiritual pleasure which does better than this sense pleasure. And when you're getting that kind of pleasure, then you can give that up. So therefore, the question is, how do you get that kind of pleasure? You get that kind of pleasure by following the practices that have been given, chanting the holy name as the greatest that there is, realizing that Srila Prabhupada's books are so... the whole point is to get a form of what they call higher taste, better taste, enjoyable, so that one no longer cares for that lower taste. It's less enjoyable. So when the spiritual joy is so far superior in its enjoyment, who cares for the lower taste? That's what we have to be striving for. But that's not the goal. The goal is to give pleasure to Krishna, and by trying to do that, we will get the higher taste. Krishna will bestow his blessings, his grace, his kindness on us, because we're trying to please him. And that's the main point.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one friend whose grandfather wrote him a lot of letters, and he passed away, but still he wrote him a lot of letters, and his mother would give one letter on each of his birthday. So every birthday he would be excited, oh, I'm going to get a letter that my grandfather wrote for me. So that used to be his birthday gift. So when I opened Srila Prabhupada's books and reading Srila Prabhupada's purport, I also feel that my grandfather has written a letter for me. And we should all feel like that, because, you know, Srila Prabhupada cares so much about his spiritual children, about his disciples, about the grand disciples, that Srila Prabhupada has written these letters giving us instructions for the future generation, for all time to come. So we should take these books of Srila Prabhupada extremely, extremely seriously. Devar Prabhu, and we'll stop.
You quoted this verse from Chaitanya Chandramrita, I think, from Prabodhananda Saraswati. Sorry. You quoted this verse from Prabodhananda Saraswati from the Chaitanya Chandramrita. Which number was it? The verse number that it came?
It should be 4th, I think.
What's that?
Maybe, I'm not sure exact number.
Okay.
Thank you. Beautiful class. At one point you said even the plants and creepers in Vaikuntha are desiring to take a human birth. So
11th canto, yeah.
Sorry?
11th canto Bhagavatam.
Really?
Yeah.
Could you explain that? Because that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would they?
Because
if you're in
they
Vaikuntha,
have-
that's a perfection, right?
Yeah, Vaikuntha is all the perfected beings reside there. Even today's verse describes Vibudha, the highly learned, the best of the highly learned devotees of Lord, they reside in Vaikuntha. But once you achieve something, we should not become complacent that, we're cool, everything is cool, Vaikuntha is the best place, we're enjoying here, everything is eternal. What it shows is they have immense desire to serve the Lord. They want to be more dear to the Supreme Lord. Because all the creepers, all the plants, they're still in the Shanta Ras. The Rasa is still the preliminary stage. So they want to increase that. They want to increase the thickness of the relationship with the Supreme Lord. And that's what we should all aspire. And that's what happens too. If our spiritual master is coming, we want to serve him. We want to be seen, or we want to feed him, or do something special. So there will be a relationship will be improved. So he'll know us better, or will be more in his good diaries.
So there's no direct elevation? It's like, why would they be desiring to take a human
It's their desire. What it means is that they really have immense desire to perform austerities or to perform any kind of service that they are required to. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he appeared on this planet, but he originally appeared from Vaikuntha. So in Narsimha Puran it is described that the very dear associate of Lord Vishnu named Shankhakarna was called for this, that would you like to go? So Prahlad Maharaj comes down, and then he has Shantaras, pure Shantaras he exhibited. But towards the end you see that when he actually sees Narsimhadev, the rasa has been promoted, because then Narsimhadev is so keen to pick up Prahlad and put him on his lap. So Narsimhadev, he puts him on the lap, and Narsimha Puran says that he started licking Prahlad. Just like the lion, he loves his cub so much, and he exhibits that love by licking. So because Narsimhadev, he appears as lion, so he also shows that, okay, I love you so much, and ask me whatever you want. So we see that the Shantarasa, you don't see these intense closeness with Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that is seen at the end. So we see that many of the pastimes, they begin with one rasa, but at the end there is promotion of the rasa, and that's the main reason even Krishna comes and appears and performs so many pastimes, so that all his devotees, the hearts are churned and rasa becomes thicker, hearts are churned and the rasa is promoted. So Srila Rupa Goswami Pad also mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu the same, that the rasa is promoted upwards. And when it reaches its highest thai ras, when the Swarup Avastha is reached, then the rasa is not just permanently stationary, because spiritual world is full of variegatedness and dynamic. Meaning when the rasa reaches your eternal Swarup rasa, then the transition is horizontal. Then it doesn't grow upwards, it only grows horizontally. Meaning that if by nature your Swarupa Avastha is to be friend of Krishna, then from Shantarasa you will be elevated to Dasya. And after spending, who knows, many lifetimes, you ultimately reach to your Sthayi Rasa, the Swarupa Avastha. You are friend of Krishna, but that doesn't mean now that everything is over. Now the rasa is expanding horizontally. That means within friendship, there are millions of pastimes and millions of ways you can serve Krishna, and you are eternally serving Krishna with that dynamic rasa, and you are tasting that mellows in that fashion. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. If somebody is a gopi, then we can say Shantaras, Daktaras, Sakyaras, then Vatsalya, then Swakya.